Emma wiped the counter of the cafe with a practiced ease, the familiar scent of freshly brewed coffee and baked goods surrounding her like a comforting embrace. At just 16, she had learned the importance of hard work all too well, especially in a small town where every penny counted. Her thoughts raced as she served a group of regulars, their laughter and chatter barely penetrating the fog of worry clouding her mind. Her family was struggling. Her father had taken a pay cut at the courthouse, and her mother was working extra shifts at the local grocery store. Emma sometimes felt like the weight of the world rested on her small shoulders. "Hey, Emma, can I get a refill?" called out Mrs. Jenkins, the elderly woman who frequented the cafe every morning. Emma smiled brightly, masking her anxiety. "Of course, Mrs. Jenkins, I'll be right back with that," she replied, her voice cheerful as she poured a fresh cup of coffee. The cafe was bustling, filled with the usual crowd of locals, and Emma took pride in her ability to keep the rhythm going. As she moved from table to table, she couldn't help but dream of a brighter future, one where her family wouldn't have to struggle just to make ends meet. Just then, the bell above the door jingled, and Emma turned to see a man walk in. He was tall with tousled dark hair and warm, kind eyes that seemed to light up the room. She felt an inexplicable pull toward him as he approached the counter. "Hi there. I'd like a cup of your finest coffee, please," he said, his voice smooth and inviting. Emma's heart raced slightly. There was something about him that felt different, compelling. "Coming right up. Anything to eat?" she asked, trying to sound professional. He chuckled softly. "No, just the coffee for now. I'm Daniel, by the way." "Emma," she replied, extending her hand. They exchanged a firm handshake, and she felt a spark of connection. "So, what brings you to our little cafe?" Daniel leaned casually against the counter, his demeanor relaxed yet intense. "I'm just passing through, but I've heard great things about this place. Thought I'd check it out." Emma nodded, intrigued. "Well, you won't be disappointed. We have the best pie in town, or at least that's what everyone says." He smiled, and she noticed how it reached his eyes. "I'll have to try it then. But first, tell me, what are your dreams, Emma? What do you want to do when you finish school?" Her cheeks flushed slightly at the unexpected question. Most people asked about her shifts or schoolwork, but Daniel seemed genuinely interested. "I want to be a lawyer," she confessed, her voice steady. "I want to help people who can't afford it. There's so much injustice out there." Daniel's expression changed, a flicker of admiration in his eyes. "That's an admirable goal. The world needs more people like you, those who fight for what's right." Emma felt her heart swell at his words, but she was also aware of the growing tension in her chest. "What about you? What are your aspirations?" she asked, eager to shift the focus. He hesitated for a moment, a shadow crossing his face. "I used to be a businessman," he said slowly, the weight of his words hanging in the air. "But I made mistakes, bad decisions. Now I'm trying to find a way to redeem myself." "What kind of mistakes?" Emma asked, her curiosity piqued. Daniel sighed, leaning closer, as if sharing a secret. "Let's just say that life can take unexpected turns. Sometimes we don't realize how our choices affect others until it's too late." Emma nodded, feeling a strange kinship with him. "I get that. My family has been struggling lately, and sometimes it feels like we're just trying to survive." Their conversation flowed easily, and Emma felt as if she had known him for much longer than just a few minutes. There was a depth to Daniel that intrigued her, a sense of authenticity she rarely encountered as they spoke. About dreams and regrets, the cafe buzzed around them, but for Emma, the world had narrowed down to just the two of them. Suddenly, the cafe door swung open again, and a familiar voice broke through their moment. "Emma, there you are." It was her father, Judge Thompson, entering with a warm smile on his face. Emma's heart dropped as she instinctively straightened up, knowing how her father's presence could change the dynamics of any situation. "Dad, I'll be right there," she called out, but her eyes darted to Daniel, who had gone pale. The atmosphere shifted palpably, the warmth of their conversation replaced by an unsettling tension that Emma couldn't quite understand. The cafe hummed with the usual chatter and the clinking of dishes, but the moment Emma's parents walked through the door, a palpable shift occurred in the atmosphere. Emma's heart raced as she spotted her father, Judge Thompson, his presence commanding even in the casual setting of the cafe. He wore his usual crisp suit, But today it seemed to weigh heavily on him. Beside him, her mother waved enthusiastically, oblivious to the tension that had suddenly enveloped the room. "Emma!" her father called out, a broad smile breaking across his face. Emma felt the warmth of his smile, but it was tinged with an unease as she glanced at Daniel. His expression had shifted from relaxed to rigid, the easy banter from moments ago evaporating like steam from a hot cup of coffee. "Hey, Dad," Emma replied, forcing a smile as she approached their table. "What brings you guys here?" "We thought we'd grab a bite. Your mother had a craving for pie," Judge Thompson said, chuckling lightly. But Emma could sense that something was off. Daniel's eyes darted toward the ground, and his hands trembled slightly as he gripped the edge of the table. "Just coffee for me," Daniel mumbled, barely meeting the judge's gaze. Emma noticed the way his voice trembled, as if he were trying to keep his composure in a storm. Confusion twisted in her stomach, a knot of worry tightening with each passing second. "Daniel, this is my dad," Emma introduced, attempting to bridge the growing chasm. "Dad, this is Daniel. He's—" "Ah, yes," Judge Thompson interrupted, a flash of recognition crossing his face. "We've met before." The words felt heavy, laden with unspoken history. Emma's heart sank as she felt the tension crackle like static in the air. "Mr. Thompson," Daniel said, his voice barely above a whisper. He finally looked up, but his eyes were clouded with a storm of emotions. Fear, anger, pain. Emma's heart raced as she sensed the undercurrents of their connection, the deep-rooted issues that lay beneath the surface. "Daniel," Judge Thompson replied, extending his hand. "It's been a while." But Daniel hesitated, his body rigid as he weighed the implications of that handshake. Emma watched, bewildered, as the atmosphere thickened. The cafe, once filled with laughter and chatter, fell eerily silent, the patrons now mere spectators to this tense reunion. "Dad, what do you mean you've met before?" Emma asked, her curiosity piqued, but anxiety gnawed at her. She could feel the weight of Daniel's gaze on her father, and it sent a shiver down her spine. Judge Thompson shifted uncomfortably. "It was a long time ago, Emma. Daniel was caught up in some unfortunate circumstances." "Unfortunate?" Daniel's voice rose slightly, a mix of indignation and hurt. "You mean the corruption charges you slammed me with? You took everything from me, Judge. You had the power to make a choice, and you chose to ruin a man's life." Emma's breath caught in her throat. She had heard whispers about her father's judicial decisions, but never had she imagined that one could evoke such raw emotion from someone like Daniel. The way he spoke, the pain lacing his words, it struck a chord deep within her. "Daniel, Judge Thompson began, but the words faltered, as if the weight of regret had rendered him momentarily speechless. Emma felt lost, caught between her father and this man who had been so kind to her. "What happened?" she asked softly, her voice trembling. "What did he do?" "It's not that simple, Emma," her father said, his tone shifting to one of authority. "Daniel made choices that led to his downfall. I had to uphold the law." "But at what cost?" Daniel interjected, his voice sharp. "You think you upheld justice? All you did was serve your own interest, Judge. You didn't care about the lives you affected." The silence that followed felt like a chasm opening between them, and Emma's heart raced as she looked from one man to the other. She felt a strange sense of betrayal creeping in, like a shadow in the back of her mind. The cafe, once a safe haven, now felt like a battleground, and she was caught in the crossfire. "Dad, what did you do?" Emma's question hung in the air, trembling with uncertainty. She could feel her own emotions bubbling to the surface, the confusion mingling with a desperate need for answers. Daniel stood abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. "I need to go," he said, his voice strained. The abrupt movement startled Emma, and she reached out for him instinctively. "Daniel, wait," she pleaded, confusion and fear flooding her senses. "Please don't leave." But Daniel shook his head, his expression a mix of anguish and determination. "I can't do this. Not here. Not now." With that, he turned and walked out of the cafe, leaving Emma standing there, her heart pounding as she grappled with the unfolding chaos around her. Emma stood frozen for a moment, caught in the emotional crossfire between her father and Daniel. The tentative handshake Judge Thompson extended hung in the air like a fragile truce. But Daniel's eyes were stormy, reflecting a mix of anger and hurt. The cafe, once filled with the hum of chatter and the clinking of dishes, now felt suffocating. Every breath weighted with unspoken words. "Daniel," her father said, his voice steady yet laced with concern. "It's been a long time. I didn't expect to see you here." "Neither did I," Daniel replied, his voice low, each word deliberate. He clenched his fists at his sides, the conflict within him palpable. "I didn't think I'd run into the man who ruined my life in a place like this." Emma's heart sank as she watched the two men, her father's authoritative demeanor clashing with Daniel's raw vulnerability. She stepped forward, hoping to bridge the widening chasm between them. "Dad, can you just—" "Emma," Judge Thompson interrupted, his gaze never leaving Daniel. "This is between us." "No, it's not," she insisted, her voice rising. "I'm in the middle of this too. I don't understand what happened. Why did you sentence him?" Daniel turned to Emma, his expression softening for a brief moment. "It's complicated, Emma. I made mistakes, yes, but your father had a choice." "Those mistakes led to a life sentence," Judge Thompson replied, his tone defensive. "You were guilty of crimes that undermined the trust of the community." "Guilty?" Daniel scoffed, the bitterness evident in his voice. "You handed down that verdict without knowing the full story. You didn't see the people behind the headlines, the families that were torn apart by your decision. You didn't see me." Emma felt a chill run down her spine. The words hung in the air, heavy with years of resentment and unhealed wounds. "But Daniel, you said you were trying to make amends. You can't just blame my father for everything." "This isn't just about blame, Emma," Daniel replied, his eyes pleading. "It's about understanding the consequences of actions taken in haste, without considering the human cost. I lost everything because of a judgment made in a courtroom, without any compassion shown." Judge Thompson's jaw tightened. "I did what I thought was right at the time. I had a duty to uphold the law." "And look where that duty got us," Daniel shot back, voice rising. "You think the law is black and white, but it's not. People's lives are at stake." Emma felt tears pricking at her eyes, torn between two worlds. "Can't we just talk about this? There has to be a way to fix things." "Fix things?" Daniel echoed, a bitter laugh escaping his lips. "You can't fix a man who's already been broken. You can't mend a life that's been shattered by a decision made in a moment of authority." "Enough!" Judge Thompson's voice boomed, silencing the cafe. Patrons turned their heads, curiosity and discomfort etched on their faces. "You don't understand the weight of the responsibility I carried. I didn't wake up one day and decide to ruin your life." Emma took a step back, her heart pounding in her chest. The tension was suffocating, the air thick with unresolved conflict. She looked from her father to Danielle, searching for answers in their expressions. But all she saw was pain. "Please, just listen to each other. This isn't helping anyone." Daniel shook his head, his expression a mix of sorrow and resolve. "I don't want to listen anymore. I've spent years trying to rebuild myself, and I refuse to let the past define me. I'm here to seek redemption, not to relive my mistakes." "And I'm here to protect my family," Judge Thompson replied, his voice softer, though still firm. "But if you're truly trying to make amends, then perhaps we can find a way forward." Emma felt a flicker of hope ignite within her, but it was fragile, like a candle in the wind. "Can't we start by talking about what happened? Maybe there's a way to understand each other better." Daniel glanced at Emma, her earnestness cutting through the tension like a knife. He softened slightly, allowing the walls he had built around himself to crack. "I didn't come here to fight," he admitted quietly. "I came because I thought there might be a chance to make a difference." "And maybe," Judge Thompson said, the steel in his voice giving way to something more human, "there's a chance for forgiveness, but it starts with honesty." Emma nodded, feeling the weight of the moment pressing down on her. She had never seen her father this vulnerable, nor had she ever witnessed Daniel's pain so openly. The air was thick with possibilities, and she could sense a shift, a chance for something new. Perhaps they could find a way to heal together, if only they could navigate the treacherous waters ahead. As the tension hung thick in the air of the cafe, Emma felt an unsettling mix of emotions swirling within her. Her father, Judge Thompson, sat across from Daniel, the man who once was a stranger but had quickly become a pivotal figure in her life. The weight of their shared history bore down heavily, each glance exchanged between them laden with unspoken words. Emma's heart raced as she tried to reconcile the father she adored with the man who had caused so much pain to another. Danielle, Judge Thompson began, his voice steady but marked with an undercurrent of regret. I've thought about that case countless times since. I wish I could say I made the right decision. Emma's breath caught in her throat. This was the moment she had longed for, yet it filled her with dread. Daniel's eyes narrowed, a mixture of skepticism and emotion flickering across his face. Regrets don't change what happened, Judge. You took everything from me, my career, my dignity, my family. His voice cracked, revealing the vulnerability he had fought so hard to conceal. I know, Judge Thompson conceded, the weight of his own guilt pressing down on his shoulders. And that's why I want to make amends. I can't undo the past, but I can try to help others avoid the same fate. Emma leaned forward, her heart pounding. What do you mean? I've been thinking about starting a charitable project, Judge Thompson explained, glancing hesitantly at Daniel. Something that addresses the flaws in our judicial system. Maybe we could collaborate, work together to help those who have suffered like you did. Daniel's brow furrowed as he processed the proposition. You expect me to trust you? After everything you've done? It's not about trust, Judge Thompson replied, his voice firm yet compassionate. It's about using our experiences to create change. I want to help those who feel powerless, those who have been wronged by a system that's supposed to protect them. Emma felt a flicker of hope ignite in her chest, but she remained cautious. What kind of project are you thinking about? Educational programs, workshops about the justice system, maybe even legal aid for those who can't afford it, Judge Thompson suggested, his eyes lighting up with the possibilities. We could focus on reform, on prevention. Reform? Daniel echoed, his skepticism still evident. You want to be the face of a campaign after what you did to me? Do you really think that will erase the past? Not erase, Judge Thompson replied, his voice steady, but it could be a step towards healing. For you, for me, for so many others. Emma watched the two men, both strong in their convictions, yet fragile in their own ways. Maybe we could think of it as a way to turn pain into purpose, she interjected, her voice filled with determination. If we can help even one person avoid the same mistakes, it would be worth it. Daniel looked at her, surprise flashing across his face. You think it can work? I believe it can, Emma insisted, her eyes shining with fervor. If we come together, we can create something meaningful, something that could change lives. A moment of silence enveloped the cafe, the air thick with contemplation. Judge Thompson exchanged a glance with Daniel, a silent negotiation taking place between them. Finally, Daniel sighed, his shoulders slumping slightly. I don't know. It feels like too much to ask. Every step towards redemption feels heavy, Emma replied, her voice softening. But you've already taken the hardest step by facing your past. Working together could be your chance to heal, and it could help others heal too. Daniel's expression softened, a flicker of hope breaking through his guarded demeanor. You really believe that? I do, Emma said firmly, and I think it's time we stop letting fear dictate our choices. Let's turn this pain into something positive. Judge Thompson nodded, a newfound sense of conviction washing over him. Then let's take that step together, for the sake of all those who need us. As Emma sat between the two men, a sense of purpose surged within her. The journey ahead would be fraught with challenges, but she felt a profound connection forming, a bond forged through shared pain and the hope for a brighter future. In that moment, the cafe, once a backdrop for her struggles, transformed into a sanctuary of possibilities where healing could begin. As the afternoon sun filtered through the cafe windows, casting a warm glow over the small, rustic establishment, Emma felt a surge of determination swelling within her. The air was thick with anticipation as the three of them gathered around a table, pens and notepads scattered before them. Emma glanced at Daniel, whose expression had shifted from guarded to cautiously optimistic. Judge Thompson, leaning forward, seemed genuinely invested in the moment. Okay, let's brainstorm, Emma said, her voice steady despite the whirlwind of emotions swirling inside her. What if we start a legal aid program for people who can't afford representation? There are so many who fall through the cracks of the system. Daniel nodded slowly, his brow furrowed in thought. That's a powerful idea. I know firsthand how devastating it is to navigate the legal system without help. It's overwhelming. He looked at Judge Thompson, searching for a reaction. But will you really support this? I mean, you're a judge. Your involvement could lend credibility, but it also raises questions. Judge Thompson met Daniel's gaze, the weight of his past decisions evident in the lines on his face. I understand your hesitation, Daniel, he said, his voice measured. I can't change what happened, and I can't erase the pain I caused. But I want to use my position to help others avoid the same fate. If that means supporting Emma's ambitions in this project, then I'm all in. Emma's heart raced at her father's words. She had always admired him for his dedication to justice, but now she saw a different side, a vulnerability that made her believe in his sincerity. I want to become a lawyer to fight for people like you, Daniel, she declared, her eyes shining with passion. I can't stand the thought of someone else feeling powerless in front of a system that should protect them. Emma, that's a noble dream, Daniel replied, his voice softer now, tinged with admiration. With your passion and drive, you could really make a difference. But it won't be easy. You'll face challenges that may shake your resolve. I know, she said, her tone firm, but I'm willing to fight. If we can create a program that empowers others, then maybe, just maybe, we can start to change things. The cafe buzzed around them, but in that moment it felt like they were in their own world, united by a shared purpose. Daniel leaned back in his chair, a small smile breaking through his earlier tension. So what's our first step? We need a plan, something concrete to present to potential sponsors or partners. Judge Thompson pulled out a pen, ready to jot down ideas. We could start with community outreach, he suggested. Hold workshops to educate people about their rights. Many don't even know they have options. Emma's eyes sparkled with excitement. And we could include stories of people who've experienced injustices. Real-life examples would resonate with the community and show why this program is necessary. Exactly, Daniel said, his enthusiasm building. We can create a website, share those stories, and provide resources for those seeking help. As they continued to brainstorm, Emma felt a sense of camaraderie forming between them, a bond forged not just by their shared mission, but by the raw honesty of their experiences. Each idea they exchanged felt like a brick, laid in the foundation of what could become a powerful movement for change. Eventually, the conversation began to wind down, the sun dipping lower in the sky. Emma looked at both men, feeling a sense of gratitude. I can't believe how far we've come in just one afternoon. This feels right. Daniel smiled, a glimmer of hope in his eyes. It does. We have a chance to create something meaningful here. Judge Thompson nodded, his expression serious but softened by a hint of pride. Let's agree to meet again soon. We'll flesh out this project and take it to the next level. I want to support your education, Emma. You have a bright future ahead of you. Emma's heart swelled with emotion. Thank you, both of you. I can't wait to see what we can create together. As they stood to leave, a renewed sense of purpose enveloped her, igniting a fire within her that she hadn't felt before. She was determined to make a difference, not just for Daniel, but for everyone who had been wronged by a system that sometimes failed to deliver justice. As they walked out of the cafe, the sun setting behind them, Emma felt a sense of hope blooming within her, a hope that perhaps, just perhaps, they could turn their pain into something beautiful and transformative. Emma sat on the edge of her bed, the hidden letter clutched tightly in her hand. It felt like a ticking clock, each second amplifying the weight of the revelation she had just uncovered. The yellowed paper bore her father's handwriting, a stark contrast to the vibrant life she had always known him to lead as a judge, respected, principled, and fair. But as she read through the lines, a different story began to unfold, one that painted a picture of betrayal and conspiracy. The letter detailed a shadowy scheme that had targeted Daniel, orchestrated by individuals within the very system her father had sworn to uphold. Emma's heart raced as she recalled Daniel's haunted expression during their previous encounters. She had sensed a history of pain behind his warm smile, and now it became clear that his suffering was not merely a result of his own misdeeds, but rather a consequence of a system that had betrayed him. With a deep breath, Emma stood up, pacing the small confines of her room. She had always believed in her father's integrity, but this letter shattered that belief into a million pieces. How could he? She whispered to herself, tears welling in her eyes. The warmth she felt toward her father was now tainted by the knowledge that his decisions had been manipulated by those he trusted. The gravity of the situation weighed heavily on her, a suffocating truth that threatened to engulf her. No, she thought, shaking her head defiantly. I can't let this go. Emma's resolve strengthened as she envisioned the impact of her father's actions on Daniel's life. She remembered the way Daniel had spoken about his dreams, the flicker of hope she had seen in his eyes when they discussed the possibility of a charitable project. He deserved justice, and she had to fight for it, not only for him, but for herself as well. Emma moved toward the door, the letter still in hand. She had made up her mind. She would confront her father. The thought made her stomach turn, but she knew it was necessary. She needed to understand the full story. As she stepped into the hallway, her heart raced with each footfall echoing against the wooden floor. "Dad?" she called out hesitantly as she approached the living room. The familiar scent of old books and polished wood filled her senses, but it felt different now, charged with unspoken tension. Judge Thompson looked up from a stack of papers, his brow furrowing in concern. "Emma, is everything all right?" he asked, his voice laced with genuine worry. "No, it's not," she replied, her voice steadier than she felt. "We need to talk. Now." His expression shifted, a flicker of apprehension crossing his face. "What's this about?" "About Daniel," she said, holding up the letter as proof. "And what you did to him. What you let happen." The room fell silent, the air thick with unspoken words. Judge Thompson's face paled, and Emma could see the conflict swirling within him. "Emma, please, let's sit down and talk this through." "No," Emma interrupted, her voice rising. "You don't get to brush this off. I found this letter, and it changes everything. You had a choice, and you let Daniel suffer for it." Judge Thompson's shoulders slumped, the weight of his daughter's words pressing down on him. "I never wanted to hurt anyone," he said quietly, his voice cracking. "There were pressures, influences. I thought I was doing the right thing. I didn't know." "Didn't know what?" she pressed, her heart racing with a mix of anger and hurt. "That you were part of a conspiracy? That your decisions had real consequences on someone's life?" He looked away, shame evident in his posture. "I was trying to protect our family, Emma. I thought I was making the right sacrifices." Emma absorbed his words, feeling a storm of emotions clash within her. She wanted to scream, to cry, to run away from the man she had idolized her whole life. But she also felt a flicker of understanding. Her father had been caught in a web of deception, just like Daniel. "Protect our family," she echoed, her voice softer now. "But at what cost? You hurt an innocent man, Dad. You have to fix this. You have to make it right." The silence that followed was deafening, filled with the weight of their shared history and the painful reality of their present. Emma stood her ground, ready to battle for justice, determined to uncover the truth that had been hidden for far too long. In that moment, she felt the stirrings of her future, a future where she would not only fight for Daniel, but would also reclaim her father's honor by confronting the very foundations of the justice system they both believed in. "Let's get to the bottom of this," she said finally, a newfound determination lighting her eyes. "Together."